Good afternoon. This afternoon, members from all parties voted to recognize the genocide currently being carried out by the People's Republic of China against Uyghur and other Turkic Muslims. I want to thank all MPs for sending a clear signal on the importance of human rights and of dignity. But Justin Trudeau and his cabinet refused to vote. In fact, Mr. Trudeau and most of his team did not even show up. Their coordinated absence speaks volumes. It is shameful that Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government continue to refuse to call the horrific conduct by the Chinese Communist Party what it is, a genocide. C'est une honte. Justin Trudeau et le gouvernement libéral refusent toujours d'appeler par leur nom les actes horribles du Parti communiste chinois. C'est un génocide. Rien de moins. Now, Conservatives are calling on the Liberal government to respect Parliament and officially recognize the genocide happening in China, as most of their members did when they voted in support of our motion. More than 1 million Uyghurs and other Turkic Muslims are or have been in camps. The testimonies we've heard from witnesses and survivors has been horrifying. The communist Chinese state has acknowledged the existence of these camps and their efforts to forcibly sterilize Uyghur women. Pourtant, le Premier ministre ne se déplace même pas pour voter. Nous ne pouvons pas rester silencieux. Nous devons faire preuve de courage. Canada may be a smaller country in terms of a population, but we are a towering giant when it comes to our commitment to human rights and to value of dignity. That is why the Conservatives call on the Trudeau government to show up for work on human rights and stop their naive approach to China. The Liberal government needs to stand up for what is right. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
And we have time for 4 questions with follow-up today. We'll alternate between the phone line and the room. Starting with the phone, nous avons le temps pour 4 questions totales aujourd'hui avec suivi en alternance entre le téléphone et la salle. Nous allons commencer au téléphone. Operator, do we have a first question?
Thank you. Merci. If you have a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad. Si vous désirez poser une question, veuillez appuyer sur les touches étoile 1 de votre appareil. You may cancel your question at any time by pressing star 2. Vous pouvez à tout moment annuler votre question en appuyant sur les touches étoile 2. And our first question, notre première question, est de Ryan Timothy from the National Post. Please go ahead. La parole est à vous.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm wondering, that when Canada has acted against China, even just, respecting our extradition treaty, like in the case of Meng Wanzhou, China has responded forcibly. In the case of Ms. Meng's arrest, there were noticeable hits to Canadian canola exports and pork exports. There was real suffering to Canadian farmers for this move. Are you concerned about a similar backlash from the Chinese government on this issue?
There's real suffering, Ryan, going on in China. There's a genocide happening, and Canadians, while we're free traders, and I'm very proud to be a free market party, our values are not for sale. And Mr. Trudeau needed to send that message today. He failed. And we will work with any sectors impacted by us standing up for human rights and dignity, as we have done before. The Mulroney government and apartheid is a great example. We have to stand up for what is right.
Follow-up?
So, regardless of the economic impact and regardless of the potential security impact for Canadians living in China, you view this motion, this issue, is too important to put those issues front and center, I guess.
Well, Ryan, our allies, the United States, now 2 administrations have recognized the genocide that's occurring. There's reams of evidence, and quite disturbing evidence at that. So we have to stand up for what is right. And look, with 2 of our citizens who've been in prison unfairly and unjustly for over 800 days now, Canadians know there's already some security risks and trade disruption risks with China, but that shouldn't deter us from doing what is right. The fact that Mr. Trudeau did not even show up to be accountable is a terrible sign of leadership.
Next questions in the room. Ian?
Ian Wood, CTV News. Mr. O'Toole, what actions are you going to push for following today's vote? Is it economic sanctions on China? What are you going to do?
Well, Ian, I'm calling for the government to respect the will of Parliament and to confirm this statement that a genocide is taking place and work with our allies, like the United States and other like-minded countries, to push for an end to these camps and this horrific conduct by the communist regime in China. We've led before, as I said, with respect to apartheid. The Mulroney government pushed our allies to make sure that better was demanded, and that's what we should be doing here.
Sorry, I just, following up on that, what actions are you going to push for against China? We've now used words to say that they're committing a genocide. What action should the Canadian government take to end this genocide or to punish China for committing a genocide?
Well, the first two acts begin with the motion that passed today, which is recognition and a push to relocate the Beijing Games. While a genocide is taking place, we should not be conducting an Olympic Games in the country, looking aside when horrific things are happening in another part of the country. Those are the first two steps. And the third would be to work with our allies and the appropriate diplomatic channels to apply pressure and call out the acts for what they are, genocide.
La prochaine question sera au téléphone. The next question will be on the phone. Operator?
Thank you. The next question, la prochaine question est de Catherine Lévesque de la presse canadienne. Please go ahead. La parole est à vous.
Oui, bonjour, Monsieur O'Toole. Je voulais vous entendre en français. À l'effet que je veux savoir quel signal est-ce que ça envoie que Justin Trudeau refuse de prendre position clairement aujourd'hui, le fait qu'il ne se présente même pas au vote.
Je suis déçu par l'absence de leadership aujourd'hui par M. Trudeau et son gouvernement. C'est inacceptable d'avoir zéro vote par le cabinet. C'est une question de droits des personnes, de dignité, et c'était terrible.
Un
Et
suivi?
puis, oui, tout à fait. Donc, quelle est la suite des choses maintenant? À quoi est-ce que vous vous attendez maintenant que les gens se sont entendus sur cette motion-là? Quelles actions concrètes là, vous demandez?
Le gouvernement doit annoncer un génocide en Chine. C'était le vote par tous les députés de chaque parti et aussi on doit relocaliser les Jeux olympiques et on doit travailler avec les autres pays, particulièrement les États-Unis, sur ça. C'est important pour le Canada de démontrer notre leadership en ce qui concerne les droits des personnes.
And the last question will be in the room. La dernière question dans la salle.
Yes, sir. Lee Berthium, Canadian Press. Good to see you. Now that the House of Commons has declared China's treatment of its Uyghur people a genocide, where do you stand on the responsibility to protect? Do we have an obligation to invoke that?
Well, Lee, we have an obligation to work with our allies to apply pressure diplomatically with respect to China. The world can no longer turn a blind eye. There's been ample evidence provided of forced sterilization, violence, interned people, and suppression of birth rates, all indications that is used to declare a genocide. The next step would be to get more countries to recognize this and apply pressure on China.
But the declaration of a genocide carries with it international obligations. There are certain actions that need to be followed up. Canada has a responsibility to take certain actions following such a declaration. Why are you not calling for such actions?
Well, Prime Minister Trudeau has a responsibility to show up for work and show up and take a vote, take a stand on whether we're going to turn a blind eye to something our U.S. allies have no longer turned a blind eye to. we have to be willing to work with our international partners to apply diplomatic pressure on China to cease these operations with respect to the Uyghur and Turkic Muslim population. And I think Canada can play a role alongside our allies to apply such pressure.
And this is all the time we have.
Thank you very much.